That's stupid.
Why? People fart backwards. Tischheim tea.
Eat?
Amadeus is not just a film, it is a deeply tragic confrontation between genius and envy. Released in 1984, the masterpiece recounts the life of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart through the bitter, distorted lens of Antonio Salieri, his greatest rival. But this is no ordinary historical tale. It is a symphony of deceit, ambition, and obsession, crafted with unbelievable boldness. The film won 8 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, but the stories behind its brilliance are even more extraordinary. Dangerous scenes that could have burned down an entire historic theatre, Mozart's eccentric laugh fueled by sips of whiskey, and even Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, being flatly rejected for the lead role. Every behind-the-scenes detail feels like a wild tale uncovering the truth about how this cinematic classic was brought to life. Let's dive into 20 mysterious and dramatic facts about Amadeus. 1. Mozart's signature laugh. The high-pitched, eccentric laugh of Mozart in Amadeus is one of the elements that makes the character so haunting and unforgettable. This wasn't a random detail. Tom Hulce, who played Mozart, carefully crafted the laugh based on historical letters where Mozart was described as an eccentric genius with a laugh so irritating it could drive people mad. But creating such a distinctive sound wasn't easy. Throughout filming, Hulce mastered this laugh perfectly. But during post-production, a major problem arose. Hulce's voice had changed after months of filming, and he couldn't recreate the high-pitched laugh for certain scenes that needed overdubbing. The production team began to panic. In a bold move, Hulce decided to use whiskey. After a few sips of strong liquor to relax his vocal cords, he was able to find the perfect pitch for the iconic laugh. This laugh was not just a brilliant acting choice, but became a symbol of Mozart wild genius and defiant. A small detail, but one powerful enough to shake the entire film. 2. Dangerous scenes with real fire. Miloš Forman, a director known for his obsession with authenticity, decided to film all the opera scenes at the Estates Theatre where Mozart himself once performed. But instead of using modern electric lights, he insisted on using illumination from candles and real fire. The Estates Theatre, a historic wooden structure, was surrounded by dozens of lit candles and blazing torches. Imagine this: silk dresses, velvet curtains, and dry, stiff wigs. All of it just one spark away from turning into a disaster. The production team had to station firefighters on standby at all times, but the tension was ever present. Patricia von Brandenstein, the production designer, admitted that she couldn't sleep constantly dreaming of the theatre burning down. However, Forman refused to compromise. He believed that the real glow of firelight was the only way to capture the beauty and atmosphere of the 18th century. The result was a series of shimmering firelit frames that were not only stunning, but also carried an intoxicating sense of danger. It was a bold gamble that paid off, but the line between art and disaster was as thin as a single spark. 3. Real tension between the lead actors. The jealousy between Mozart and Salieri wasn't confined to the screen. It extended into real life. F. Murray. Abraham as Salieri felt excluded from the close bond between Tom Hulce Mozart and Meg Tilly, initially cast as Constanza. The two often chatted and joked, creating a clear rift between them and Abraham. This jealousy wasn't just a feeling. It seeped into every scene, creating an incredible sense of authenticity. Abraham didn't need to act out Salieri's bitterness. He genuinely felt it. When Salieri stood in the shadows watching Mozart shine, that emotion was completely real. Even more noteworthy, Abraham kept his distance from his co-stars throughout the shoot to immerse himself in the character. He lived as Salieri, cold and resentful. This approach made the confrontations between Salieri and Mozart more vibrant and unforgettable than ever. 4. Perfection in the piano scenes. Tom Hulce wasn't a pianist, but that didn't deter him from portraying a musical genius like Mozart. Hulce refused to rely on fake playing or stand-ins. He spent 6 hours a day for months practicing piano, not to play music, but to synchronize every hand movement perfectly with the soundtrack. Initially, director Miloš Forman planned to use a stand-in for the hand scenes, but Hulce adamantly refused. He wanted every frame to look real and make viewers believe Mozart had come back to life. After filming, music professors reviewed each frame and confirmed that Hulce's hand movements were accurate down to the last note. Hulce didn't just act, he became Mozart, embracing both his eccentricity and talent. Each time his fingers touched the keys, it affirmed that genius cannot be faked. 5. The mishap in the climax scene.
Second measure, second beat. Maledictus. You see?
Yes, G sharp?
Of course.
Yes.
Second beat of the third measure, on E.
The scene where Mozart, on his deathbed, dictates the Requiem to Salieri is one of Amadeus's most iconic moments. But behind this flawless scene lies an unexpected behind-the-scenes secret. In a bold move, Tom Hulce intentionally skipped lines in the script, leaving F. Murray Abraham, who was taking notes on the music, completely baffled. That confusion wasn't acting. Abraham had to struggle to keep up with Mozart, and his sense of helplessness in the scene was entirely real. Director Miloš Forman didn't cut the scene but let it play out naturally. The result? A segment that is both chaotic and breathtakingly authentic. Mozart's madness, Salieri's panic, everything blended together to create a moment steeped in tragedy. This wasn't just acting, it was art, where on-set surprises became cinematic magic. 6. Real-life Salieri and the Cavalieri character. The film makes viewers believe Salieri was a jealous madman, even obsessed to the point of destroying Mozart. But historical truth is far from what you think. In real life, Salieri didn't hate Mozart. In fact, he praised Mozart's talent and had no intention of sabotaging his career. One of the most controversial details in the film is the relationship between Salieri-Mozart and the soprano singer Cavalieri. The film portrays Cavalieri as caught between these two men, but in reality she had no connection to Mozart. Instead, she was Salieri's lover. This truth was entirely altered in the film to heighten drama and emphasize the rivalry between the two main characters. This proves that Amadeus is not a documentary. It's a theatrical story designed to evoke the strongest emotions: jealousy, ambition, and obsession. The historical truth was distorted, but it's precisely this distortion that gives the film its irresistible allure. Meg Tilly's Accident and Replacement by Elizabeth Berridge. The role of Constanza originally belonged to Meg Tilly, but just a few days before filming, everything unexpectedly took a turn. During a soccer match with her co-stars, Tilly suffered a severe injury and was unable to continue with the project. The production team panicked. Everything was ready, and now they had to find a new actress in just a few short days. Elizabeth Berridge, an almost unknown name at the time, was chosen as her replacement. This decision was not only unexpected, but also controversial, as Berridge had no time to train or prepare like the other actors. However, this lack of preparation inadvertently created something magical. Berridge transformed into Constanza with a natural and raw authenticity, portraying a character who was both innocent and strong, a perfect counterbalance to Mozart's madness. Tilly's Accident was a setback, but it paved the way for a bold choice that contributed to the film's success. 8. Mark Hamill, rejected for Mozart. Mark Hamill, the star of Star Wars, once had a significant chance to play Mozart on screen. Before this, Hamill had performed the role on Broadway and received widespread acclaim. But when it came to the film adaptation, things didn't go as planned. Miloš Forman, the director, flatly refused to let Hamill audition, citing a painfully simple but harsh reason: Hamill was too famous as Luke Skywalker. Forman feared that the image of a Jedi would completely overshadow Mozart. Audiences wouldn't see a musical genius, but a lightsaber-wielding warrior. Thus, Hamill was eliminated early in the selection process. The role eventually went to Tom Hulce, a lesser-known actor at the time who perfectly brought to life a Mozart brimming with both madness and energy. This decision was a major blow to Hamill, but perhaps it was the right one. Mozart in Amadeus needed a fresh face unburdened by any iconic image. 9. Cynthia Nixon played the maid at age 17. Cynthia Nixon, then only 17 years old, took on a small role in Amadeus as Constance's maid. But to take part in the film, Nixon had to overcome a significant challenge. She was already working on another project in the US and had to fly back and forth between 2 continents to meet her schedule. Filming in Prague, under the strict supervision of the communist government at the time, was already a daunting task. For Nixon, the exhaustion from constant travel added to the difficulty. She often appeared on set with a tired face and little time to prepare. Despite this, Nixon delivered a memorable performance, ensuring her small role stood out. For a young actress like Nixon, Amadeus was not just an opportunity but also a grueling challenge. Yet it was this challenge that helped refine her talent, paving the way for her later success as one of Hollywood's prominent names. 10. The discomfort of filming in period costumes. The lavish, meticulously detailed costumes in Amadeus came at a high price, the actors suffering. The thick, tight-fitting outfits made of silk and heavy velvet, combined with the high temperatures on set, turned each day of filming into a nightmare. Actors constantly sweated, fainted, and some even developed allergies to the cumbersome wigs made from animal hair. The tightly bound corsets made it hard to breathe, not to mention the hours spent under the heat of candles and real fire. One actor joked that filming felt like being trapped inside a giant oven. For Miloš Forman, all of this was necessary. The director wanted absolute authenticity, even if it meant putting the actors through discomfort. But this grueling process resulted in a timeless beauty for the film, with every frame appearing as if it had stepped out of a painting from the era. 11. Filming in Czechoslovakia under communist rule. Filming in Prague during the 1980s wasn't just an artistic choice, it was a risky decision. Under communist rule, every activity of the production team was closely monitored. Local authorities were ready to intervene at any moment if they felt the film didn't align with the state's values. Miloš Forman, originally from Czechoslovakia and a defector from the regime, understood the risks well. Yet he chose Prague for its unspoiled beauty. The cobblestone streets and untouched Baroque and Rococo buildings created the feeling of stepping directly into the 18th century. The production faced strange restrictions, the number of imported equipment was limited, and local officials supervised every scene. Despite these challenges, Forman completed the film as he envisioned. The tension between art and politics added another layer to Amadeus, not just as a story about Mozart, but as a testament to the resilience of artists under pressure. 12. The danger of real lighting. Miloš Forman's obsession with authenticity didn't stop at costumes and sets. The director insisted on using candlelight and real fire for all the scenes instead of electric lights. This not only enhanced the film's aesthetic, but also made everything much more dangerous. The Estates Theatre, where the opera scenes were filmed, was an old wooden structure highly susceptible to fire. The actors and crew worked among dozens of burning candles, large torches, and flickering flames from real pits of fire. A single misstep could have engulfed the entire theatre in flames. To ensure safety, the production kept firefighters on standby at all times. Yet the tension lingered. Miloš Forman refused to compromise, believing only real light could capture the shimmering beauty of the 18th century. And he was right. Every frame in Amadeus became a living painting created with fire and light. 13. Fully staged opera scenes. The opera scenes in Amadeus weren't just filmed segments, they were real performances. Miloš Forman didn't want to shoot a few short clips and piece them together. He demanded that every opera scene be fully staged, complete with orchestras, singers, and actual audiences. To accomplish this, the production brought in professional musicians and singers from across Europe to Prague. The performances were organised like real shows with hundreds of participants. This not only added realism, but also infused the scenes with vibrant energy. The actors weren't just acting, they lived in the atmosphere of Mozart's operas. They felt the music, the audience's gaze, and the tension of being on stage. The result was a film where every opera scene feels stunningly real, as if Mozart himself were there orchestrating it all. 14. The mystery of the Requiem. The Requiem in the film is one of the central elements tied to Mozart's downfall, but the historical truth is not as Amadeus portrays it. In the film, Salieri is depicted as the person who secretly commissions the Requiem from Mozart. The haunting image of Salieri by Mozart's bedside recording each note as Mozart dies is one of the most unforgettable moments in the movie. In reality, the person who commissioned the Requiem was Count Franz von Wolsegg, a wealthy nobleman. He wanted the piece to honour his late wife, but planned to claim it as his own work. Mozart never finished the Requiem before his death. However, the film's alteration of this fact created a more dramatic narrative, painting Salieri not only as an antagonist, but also as the final witness to Mozart's genius. A historical distortion, but one that made Amadeus a legend. 15. F. Murray. Abraham wasn't the first choice. The role of Salieri wasn't initially intended for F. Murray Abraham. His name wasn't even on Miloš Forman's original list. But everything changed during the audition. Abraham entered the room, read a simple scene, and left the casting team utterly speechless. In that moment, Forman knew he had found his Salieri. No one else could embody the character's complexity, bitterness, and pain like Abraham. However, casting him was a gamble. At the time, Abraham was a relatively unknown actor with no major roles to his name. This choice changed everything. Abraham didn't just play Salieri, he became him, delivering a performance so extraordinary that it won him the Academy Award for Best Actor. A surprising decision, but one that was entirely right. 16. Abraham fully immersed himself as Salieri. Abraham didn't just act as Salieri, he lived as Salieri. Throughout the filming, Abraham distanced himself from his co-stars, especially Tom Hulce Mozart. He didn't talk, joke, or socialise with them. Abraham wanted to feel the isolation, bitterness, and resentment of his character. Even when the cameras weren't rolling, Abraham maintained his cold and aloof demeanour. For him, Salieri wasn't just a role. It was a burden, a tragedy he had to carry. The result was a performance that sent shivers down viewers' spines. Abraham's Salieri wasn't just a jealous rival. He was a deeply complex human being, both pitiable and terrifying. 17. The rivalry was fictional. In Amadeus, Antonio Salieri is the embodiment of envy and hatred obsessed to the point of destroying Mozart. But here's the shocking truth. In real life, Salieri did not hate Mozart. In fact, he publicly praised Mozart's talent, and there is no historical evidence that he ever sought to harm the composer. The truth is, Salieri and Mozart worked in the same circles, but their lives rarely intersected. The stories of their rivalry only emerged years after their deaths, primarily through fictional accounts. However, the fictionalized tragedy of Salieri in the film was so masterfully constructed that it convinced audiences this was the truth. By turning Salieri into the antagonist, the film crafted a deeply emotional narrative that contrasted Mozart's extraordinary genius with Salieri's mediocrity. It's a distortion of history, but one that created one of the most compelling cinematic stories ever told. 18. Mozart's revival thanks to the film. Before Amadeus was released, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's name wasn't widely recognized in modern popular culture. His music was cherished within classical circles, but the general public paid little attention to it. Then Amadeus arrived and everything changed. After the film's release, Mozart's works suddenly became a sensation. Sales of his music recordings skyrocketed. For a time, his compositions even outsold pop icons like Madonna and Bruce Springsteen on classical and mainstream music charts. This wasn't just a success for the film, but also a testament to the power of combining cinema with music. Amadeus brought the 18th century genius back to the forefront, making modern audiences not only appreciate but also revere his talent. 19. The film's unique marketing approach. Imagine promoting a historical drama with Mozart's music to a young audience. How could it possibly work? Miloš Forman achieved this in an unexpected way. The Amadeus trailer was designed like a rock music video featuring fast-paced, energetic cuts and dramatic, intense music. This bold approach shattered expectations of what a period film could be. Instead of presenting the film as slow and heavy, the trailer turned Amadeus into a vibrant modern experience. It portrayed Mozart as the rock star of the 18th century, wild, talented, and magnetic. The strategy was wildly successful. Amadeus didn't just captivate history buffs or classical music fans. It drew in a younger, broader audience who might otherwise have ignored Mozart. This marketing campaign proved that a creative approach could entirely change how a film is perceived. 20. An unexpected success. Nobody expected Amadeus to succeed. A period drama over 2.5 hours long with classical music and a heavily fictionalized historical storyline. It sounded like a recipe for box office failure. But the reality was quite the opposite. Amadeus didn't just succeed, it became a cultural phenomenon. The film grossed over $90 million worldwide, an enormous sum at the time, and won 8 Academy Awards including Best Picture. The success of Amadeus lay in its universal themes. It wasn't just a story about Mozart, it was a story about jealousy, ambition, and destruction, emotions that resonate deeply with everyone. The film surpassed all expectations, becoming a classic and proving that what seems impossible can sometimes make history. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed these fascinating behind-the-scenes stories, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss more exciting content. What do you think about Amadeus? Leave a comment below. See you in the next video.